Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. We're going to solve a prompt engineering problem from lunaprompts.com. And in case you haven't heard of them, they're a new platform that brand themselves as the lead code for prompt engineering. And it's something that I'm very excited about because I think that a lot of people nowadays are interacting with LLMs and there's this whole hype going on. But LLMs have this thing where the way you phrase the request that you want to give to them greatly influences the type of output you're going to get. Sometimes you have that the LLM goes off the rails. Sometimes you just want a number and they're going to go on a whole rant about how they came up with the number. So being able to properly come up with inputs that are going to give you the outputs that you want is the art of prompt engineering. And having a platform to practice that is really amazing in my opinion, because as I said before, everybody's interacting with LLMs. You don't need a technical background for it. So this has huge potential to impact people who are using this kind of thing for a lot of work. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over one of the challenges, and I am going to explain a little bit about how the thought process that I went through when I was solving this problem, and this can help as a benchmark or reference point for you to also solve problems on your own or to think about how to do better prompts on your own. So as you can see, they're quite new. They have around 7 challenges, and we're going to tackle one of the first ones, which is called as an easy difficulty. So here in the platform, you go to challenges, you pick the challenge that you want to do, and this is the workflow that we have here. So they're going to give us a problem statement. There's certain requirements, so this is the level of accuracy that we're going to have, and this is what our prompt must do. And then, well, here we have some input and outputs, which I'm going to explain once I go over the problem statement. And then also here you have a prompt editor. So I'm going to delete this here. Here you have a prompt editor where you're given what the prompt is going to be. So the you're going to create a prompt, and this prompt is going to receive some data, so to speak, which is going to be given by this variable. And after that, you will be able to run this over test cases. So it's very similar to Leetcode if you or deepml.com if you're very familiar with those. So the problem we're solving today is assessing user satisfaction from reviews. So the problem statement is that we have Jacob, who's a product manager on OpenAI. And in case you don't know, that's a company that recently launched an AI-powered chatbot assistant, ChatGPT, which has been a huge hit. There's thousands of user reviews daily. However, there's a problem. So the boss of Alex wants to know the overall sentiment of those reviews and the corresponding ratings out of a measure of on a scale to 5 to measure user satisfaction. So what's the problem here is that we're going to be given just text, so what the user inputs on it, but we're not going to have access to what number they give us, right? So for example, in Google Maps or Google Reviews, you always have the 5-star system, and apart from the stars, you see the text. Here, we're just going to look at the text, and we have to infer what the stars would have been. That's kind of the equivalent here. The good thing is that they give us the scale, so from 1 to 5, and here's the definition. There is dissatisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, very satisfied. And also there's the possibility that we're given a review that's not relevant. And in case it's something that's not relevant, so for example, maybe they're talking, instead of talking about ChatGPT, they're talking about a book or something that has nothing to do with OpenAI, then we're going to have to give -1 as a rating. So this is a very applied situation. This is the kind of thing that people run into a lot of the time. I've run into similar tasks again in the things that I do at my PhD, and I know from my wife and other people in the industry that they kind of run into this type of problem um, before. So figuring out how we can make sure that this thing works is very important. So here we have some examples to get an idea of how things are going on. So it is best to give some demonstration on each other fact and theories, but it's not that good at calculating some advanced mathematical calculations, and that's need to improve. Okay, so this is not grammatically correct, but we can see here that it's talking about ChatGPT. It doesn't mention ChatGPT necessarily explicitly, but it's telling you something about it. So it's saying, it's pretty good at math, but it should give a more fleshed out context. And what we expect out of here is for a classifier to map it as 3, which would be neutral. So here we have an input. It offers high quality response, but you still have to relate. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but that should be positive. So, I guess the positive comes from high quality response. So let's go over how we would solve this problem. Let me give you some pointers for prompt engineering in general and the kind of things that we have to keep in mind. So the first thing I would say is that for us to make sure that this thing works, we should provide the scale to the machine. So here, we're given a scale from 1 to 5 with the definitions. We should pass that to our LLM that we're going to use. Oh, and by the way, here you can pick whichever model you want. Right now, there's only GPT 4.0 support, but I've heard that they're going to have other models later. So first, we're going to provide the scale so that the LLM knows what kind of rating we expect it to base itself upon. Then the other thing that we should do is we should be able to mention that we only care about the rating. And there's a specific way of phrasing this, but what I mean is that when we pass this text, we don't want the machine to say, oh, because the user is giving some criticism, but it's not very harsh, we're going to rank it as a 3. No, we don't want that. We only want the number 3. So we should make that explicit, because if not, the LLM is going to go off the rails and keep yapping about this kind of thing. And then the last thing that we should keep in mind is how to handle edge cases. So this can become very complex in other scenarios, but right here, we have that if the review is not relevant, we give the rating as -1. So we have to write that explicitly here. So I've written down the kind of prompts I went to when I was thinking about the thought process, and I kind of stylized it a little bit so it would be more similar to what somebody who's just starting out would do. So what I would do, or rather the first prompt that I came up with was the following. So you're an analyst at OpenAI, you're tasked with classifying user reviews of OpenAI products using the following scale. So as you can see here, I'm fulfilling one of my first tenets, which is pass the scale with the definition. I'm also doing this thing where I'm saying, hey, you're an analyst, so on and so forth. So here I'm telling the LLM to step into the shoes of Jacob, who's the analyst from the prompt. So after that, that usually works because kind of role playing, I'm not entirely sure if there's a lot of papers on that kind of thing, but usually when you ask the LLM to role play, it tends to enhance its performance. Like if you wanted to review some of your text, you say, hey, you're an expert copywriter with 20 years of experience, that kind of stuff. It tends to help the LLM to perform better. So after that, we have over here, I will provide you an excerpt of text that corresponds to a user review. I want you to give me the rating following the previously described scale. So this is the instruction. This is what I want you to do. I'm going to pass you some text and I want you to give me a rating. Do not provide an explanation or rationale. So that is to avoid this problem that I said that we give the number with something else. Just provide the rating as a number. If the review is unrelated to OpenAI, return -1. And that handles the edge case that we want. And to pass the review, I'm going to say, here's the review. And then I pass this as a variable, which is the variable that we're giving him. And with that, we are good to go to run some test cases. So if you're familiar with Leetcode, this is like pressing run. It's not going to run on all of the test cases. It's just going to run on a couple of them. So after we run that, we see here the test results. We can see that there's two test cases that we can play with before we move on to other cases. So the first one, we failed. Where it says here, it is best to give some demonstration of each other's facts and theories, but it's not good. So it's the advanced mathematical calculation ones. And then the one that it passed is when it offers high quality response, but you still have to relate. So what can we do with this information? Well, we have some idea of where the LLM is failing. So it's not that good at identifying a neutral situation. It's not that good at dealing with a neutral situation. So then we should be unable to, we should maybe try to steer the LLM so that when it has some uncertainty, it should default to neutral instead of, taking a stance, because here it classified is a dissatisfied when it should have been neutral. So here I prepared this other prompt, which is what I came up with afterwards, which is the exact same prompt as before, with the difference that now I say, if you're uncertain on the rating, err on the side of it being neutral. And I put into parentheses number 3. So it doesn't have to go back into the context window and realize the neutral is 3. I'm just giving that as an information here. And with that, I'm going to run another test cases. Oh, let me see. Run test. I lost the button for a moment. So we run the test cases. And again, we see that we fail. Well, so now we ended up passing this one. So this test, they kind of change the test cases depending on where you are, on what kind of thing you're doing. But as we can see here, we perform good on this test case, the one with the advanced mathematical calculations. It used to be 2, now we're 3. But this one, it offers high quality response, so you still have to relate. I think this one we used to classify as correct and now as 4, and now we're classifying it as 3. So again, why am I showing you this? Because as you try to engineer your prompt, you figure out that some things end up improving, but some of those end up, some things can improve at the cost of others being less efficient. So we have to be aware of that when we're working with it. So after that, I came up with this new prompt. So the only thing that changed here is that when I say if the review is unrelated to OpenAI, or if I ask you to do a command, return -1. So this is the exact same prompt, but I'm going to explain a little bit why I chose this. So far I've been showing you how to, let me just delete this part so that it is the exact same thing as before. Okay, now we have the exact same test. What I'm going to do now is that we run it on all of the test cases. Now I'm going to submit the solution. So this is going to run it on all of the test cases that are on the database instead of running it only on the 2 test cases that we had before. So I click submit current solution. We're going to get a warning. So you've achieved a score of 50%. You should try to pass 70% of test cases to pass this challenge. And right now, your solution is close to passing, but it may not pass everything. We're just learning here, so I'm going to run it on all the test cases. We're going to see what happens. Okay, so with this prompt, we ended up passing all test cases. What's going on? So although we fail on certain test cases, most of the test cases, we end up passing. So we end up doing pretty well on a lot of the test cases that we have here. We have to inspect a little bit on what we're failing on. So for example, here we get a nonsense app, doesn't give what I want. I need OpenAI do better. Well, this one is very, very negative. So it should be 1, but we gave it a 2. Maybe because of this overcorrection that you should err on the side of neutralness. ChatGPT have also given the examples of topics. It really helps. I'm not entirely sure why this one should be a 3. It really helps also threw me off for a loop and it made me think of 4, but you know, that's kind of a problem we run into. And finally, this one, it offers a high quality response, but you still have to relate. So we should have given a 4 and a 3. So right now, with what we have, we ended up passing the solution. But obviously, we can keep improving on the prompt. Just to make this video a little bit shorter as an introduction to Luna prompts, I'm not going to show the last prompt that I did, but that one ended up passing like 82% of test cases. So there's still room for improvement. And what I like about this platform is that it's very close to what happens in real life. As I said before, it's very hard for you to come up with unless you're very familiar with data and you can find an underlying pattern on it. It's very hard for you to find a prompt that works 100% of the time. There's always some correction, but with these thresholds, you can make sure that at least your thing is going to work a lot and you don't need to babysit it a lot. So that's it for today's video. I'm very excited about this platform, as I said, and I would like all of you to give it a shot. I'm sure that you can learn something out of it. And hopefully in the future, I'll keep making more Luna prompts content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.